トビデオ
The belief in extrasensory abilities had been around since most of ancient civilization, with entire societies and mythologies built around the prophecies of oracles delivered via studies in astrology and divinations. However, it wasn't until the late 19th century that modern spiritualism necessitated more scientific study into these alleged phenomena, asking whether or not humans could in fact have the ability to read minds, predict futures, or levitate objects across rooms. Most mainstream scientists at the time rightly denounced this study of supposed psychic abilities as pseudoscience, yet there were some who pressed on in this newfound field of quackery. One of them was Duke University professor J.B. Rhine, who, in the 1930s, conducted serious investigations into what he referred to as extrasensory perception, or ESP. Using a simple set of 5 cards, called Zene cards, Rhine believed that those with a sixth sense could accurately guess the symbols on said cards accurately when hidden from view. Those who could accurately guess the symbols were known as espers. The final results of Rhine's experiments were inconclusive at best because law of probability dictates that even a person without such extrasensory abilities guessing would be bound to get some of the symbols right. But the idea of the esper lived on. Even though psychics have been discredited publicly for years as nothing more than performers of elaborate parlor tricks, the idea of psychic powers still manages to transfix people. And why shouldn't it? It's a way to bring the idea of magic into a world of science. This made the phenomenon ripe, fertile ground to mine for in fiction as it provided plausible explanations for extraordinary abilities in more grounded settings. Psychic, or psionic powers, found their way in all corners of fictional works, especially anime. Espers and psychics are just about as woven into the tapestry of anime as much as giant robots and magical girls. Extrasensory abilities have found their way into numerous anime franchises, from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure to the Railgun series to goddamn Pokemon.
A circle! A star.
This is because psychic and ESP abilities are super flexible story devices that can fit into almost most modern settings. The arguable example of an esper story in anime and manga was Lock the Superman. It was a hit manga series that started out as a doujin in the late 60s before getting an official series in 1979 that, as far as I know, is still running to this day. But in 1984, it hit its commercial peak when it got its own movie known as Lock the Superman: Witch Era. So of course, there were going to be anime studios hoping to replicate similar successes with similar manga. And luckily for a little studio called Pierrot, there existed such a manga. Cosmo Police Justy, no not that Justy, focuses on Justy KaiserBeamz, the most powerful esper in the universe and member of the Galaxy Patrol System Cosmo Police. His duty is to bring down other espers who use their powers for criminal and nefarious means. One of these espers was Magnum Vega. Justy was able to take down the vicious criminal, but not before said takedown was witnessed by Vega's own daughter, Astaris. Astaris, vowing revenge, awakens her latent powerful esper powers and transforms from child to full-grown woman to attack Justy. Sound familiar? Luckily, Justy was able to subdue Astaris without incident, and she wound up with amnesia, causing Justy to take her in and raise her as his younger sister with the help of his older sister, Jelna.
お兄ちゃんお仕事で疲れているんだから。だってつまんない。姉さんとおしゃべりばっかり。
Meanwhile, Justy's reputation as a powerful esper cop has no doubt made him some enemies. Esper criminal kingpin Raumus recruits a murderer's row of other criminal espers to hijack a civilian space shuttle in order to lure Justy to them to exchange Astaris for hostages. It's all just a ploy for the espers to combine their powers. Even a powerful esper like Justy can't fight off 10 espers using their power in sync, and force Astaris' memories to return to her, awakening the angry, vengeance-seeking superhuman within.
Astaris.
Will Justy be able to defuse his adopted time bomb of a sister? Will he bring justice to Raumus and his cronies? Or will the most powerful esper in the universe get blown into the most powerful space dust in the universe? Cosmo Police Justy, or as it is sometimes known as just simply Justy, is a title that once again puts us in that magical year of anime known as 1985. You all know the story. While Marty McFly is going back to the future and Kate Bush is running up that hill, the anime world is being set on fire by the newfound OVA market and the wealth of direct-to-video riches it is being flooded with. Justy was one of those riches, and like many of his brethren that year such as Fight Exer 1, Dream Hunter Rim, and Bobby's in Deep, it is a flawed jewel, but one that shines like a star in the night sky. What exactly does that entail? Well, I'm no psychic myself, but I do predict that by the end of this video, I will have done a good enough job convincing you that Cosmo Police Justy is at least worthy of a viewing as a piece of 80s anime fun. The story of Cosmo Police Justy begins with the manga it is based off of. Don't they all? On August of 1981, manga author Suguo Okazaki published the first volume of science fiction manga Justy. Published in Shonen Sunday Zokan, the manga about the world's most powerful esper being a space cop ran for 5 volumes between 1981 to November of 1984. And towards the tail end of its run, a certain anime studio took an interest. If you've been keeping up with my videos for a while now, you probably know that Pierrot was the studio that single-handedly made the OVA market into the moneymaker it was all throughout the 80s, starting with 1983's Dallos. Not one to rest on their laurels, Pierrot started greenlighting OVA projects left and right after Dallos wrapped, one of them being Cosmo Police Justy. You could conceivably write off Justy as Pierrot's B project at the time, especially when compared to their prime OVA project at the time, Area 88, which got all kinds of love and budgets. But don't think for a minute that the studio handed off the lower priority project to a bunch of nobodies. Director was Motosuke Takahashi. Like many Pierrot employees, he was a former Tatsunoko regular with animating and directing credits ranging from episodes of Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, The Brave Frog, and Maya the Bee. Takahashi left Tatsunoko sometime in the late 70s and joined Pierrot in the early 80s, just after he finished up a stint as animation director for the series Belle and Sebastian. He would get more steady work as episode and animation director for various Pierrot projects until 1985, when he was asked to fully helm Cosmo Police Justy, pulling double duty as both head director and animation director. And in the midst of all this, Takahashi was also pulling dual director roles for another OVA project called Fire Tripper, so I can only hope he got some vacation time afterwards. I don't have enough information to know if the Justy OVA was successful in Japan or not, but what piece of information I did find was that this anime was incredibly popular in the American bootlegging scene of the 80s. According to Fred Patton's article for Cartoon Research, he described Justy as being an anime that was in constant demand among CFO chapters and tape traders, so much so that when he joined Jerry Beck and Carl Masick at Streamline Pictures, at the top of the list of potential anime the company could license was Cosmo Police Justy. Unfortunately, it seemed like Pierrot was not interested in handing the license over for distribution. Carl Masick went on record saying that the asking price for Justy's license was so astronomically high that he figured that it was Pierrot's polite way of saying that the OVA was not for sale. And considering the current footage you are watching is still the best quality version floating around out there, don't hold your breath for a remaster anytime soon. What Americans did get from the Justy franchise was Viz translating and publishing some chapters of the manga in 1988. They were arranged out of order and only lasted 9 issues, but it was something at least. Anyways, onto the anime itself. The story is good for your 45-minute OVA fare. It introduces us, the audience, to Justy, his powers, his supporting cast, what his occupation entails, and the world that surrounds him. And it's all done through a singular case. It's the unique type of case that illustrates why a character like Justy, the most powerful esper in the known universe, is such an integral part to upholding cosmic justice. When you've got such a diverse group of psychic criminals roaming the galaxy, wreaking havoc, it's kind of nice having at least one good crime-fighting esper on your side. But you know, having a character whose selling point is the most powerful esper in the known universe can make for some difficult storytelling. It's hard to uphold the drama when your main character can literally set a dude on fire with a snap of a finger. No worries there. Not only are these criminal espers powerful enough that they can cause Justy to break a sweat in fighting, but even one powerful esper's options are limited when faced up against 10 slightly less powerful espers.
しかし、これで本当に奴を殺せるのか？できる。あの娘のパワー以上のものを出せば98人の乗ったシャトルも吹っ飛ぶ。奴にはそれはできないはずだ。
So not only is Justy a powerful tool in the war against psychic crimes, but him being so powerful easily paints a target on his back. It's lightly touched on in the anime, but it's kind of implied that Justy's unique position doesn't allow him for much time off.
指令が呼んでるんだ。一人で帰れるかい？
またお仕事？いや、お兄ちゃん。
On the other hand, it seems that the above is practically the only thing that is interesting about Justy. Justy is, frankly, way too stock of an 80s shonen hero to actually be interesting. You know, the type who's professional while still being emotionally involved, but transforms into a prettier Kenshiro during the fight scenes.
アスタリスはもうクリミナルエスパーマグナマムベガの子じゃない。アスタリスは僕の大切な妹なんだ。
Raumus is also not a compelling villain either. Despite a pretty intimidating character design from Okazaki himself, he's mostly just a heavy for Justy to beat in the climax. No more, no less.
でどうするんです、あの娘。
もう必要はねえ。ほっとけ。親父の仇を取れたんだ。本望だろうよ。
And it's not much better for Justy's supporting cast. The characters of Jelna and Bulba are heavily underwritten compared to how they are in the manga. Bulba only gets one scene to show that Justy has a partner on the force, and then disappears entirely until the end credits. And Jelna only seems to be there to act as the vague maternal figure for Justy. They don't even really talk about how she's actually the one who took him in and trained him for the police force in the first place. It's stuff like that that makes this anime feel like it's more of a companion piece to the manga rather than an adaptation. And yet, there is the character whom I consider to be the true star of the show.
おかえりなさい、お兄ちゃん。
のただいまアスタリス。
If there's any story reason I could give to make you watch Justy, it's the character of Astaris. Not for any actual character reasons, mind you though. She is an interesting character from a purely historical perspective. Astaris' whole deal is that she is a little girl in the body of a full-grown woman, which, in other words, makes her character quite possibly the first moeblob. Think about it. She's cutesy, she's clumsy, she can't do anything right, and her vocal performance provided by then rookie seiyuu Mina Tominaga, yes, Noa Izumi herself, is peppered with so much giggles, yays, and wows. When Astaris was created in the manga, moe as a concept was still in its infancy, and was reserved for characters that were either sweet and demure or peppy, capable firecrackers. Astaris kind of falls in the middle, being peppy and sweet and all, but now she has an added layer of helplessness that makes you want to pick her up and take her home. You know, if you're into that sort of thing, I guess. And considering she's also Justy's adopted little sister, you got the layer of Emoto frosting right on the moe cake.
お兄ちゃんに宇宙で助けられたでしょ。私あそこで何をしていたの？どうしてあそこにいたの？
危険なお兄ちゃんの仕事についてきたいなんて言うからお仕置きしたのさ。
そうだったの。
そう。
Speaking of which, would her superpowered rage form be considered an example of Gap Moe? But I digress. Astaris might not be the exact origin for so many caveats to anime recommendations, but she definitely is fascinating in how she feels more like an anime character from 20 years in the future. Other than that though, there's nothing really captivating about Justy from a story standpoint. This is an anime I recommend purely from a visual experience. From what I've read of the Viz translations of the manga, Okazaki's art for Justy has a very specific look to it. It's supposed to capture this otherworldly, almost psychedelic action vibe to it, a style that can convey that mood even in the limitations of a black and white manga page. Think Jack Kirby's work on the New Gods if you want a comparison. And really, what makes the anime recommendable in the first place is Takahashi's ability to translate the feel of that style to animation. It might not come through as clear thanks to the quality of the footage being shown, but there is a real cosmic feel to the animation of Cosmo Police Justy. Characters are given heavy shading that are overlaid with galactic backdrops, there's tons of effects animation that flows well with the action, and the fight scene animation. Oh man, the fight scene animation. Going back to how this sort of resembles a comic book, the animation of Justy feels incredibly snappy and flashy, just like that medium. Justy himself is like a bullet throughout these fight scenes, dashing around at the speed of light. He feels less human and more like a source of energy. All of this combined sells you on the conceit of the anime that Justy is in fact the world's most powerful esper. He has psionic forces at his fingertips, able to rip through human beings like a hot knife through butter and travel at light speed in the cold vacuum of space without a helmet. Looking back, Dalos, while important, is kind of boring in its animation and presentation. Not bad, but very flat and standard. Since it was Pierrot playing with this new experimental method of distributing anime, it's no surprise they played it safe. On this flip side, Justy has Takahashi cutting loose and having his boys follow his lead. It's pure spectacle, and even if it's all in service to a story about a superhuman trying to protect his fully grown adopted baby sister with zero blood relation, it's worth it in the end. Not gonna lie, there are anime out there who have done the superpowered Esper chestnut way more better than Cosmo Police Justy. Story is simple and has the action and Astaris' moe cuteness do most of the heavy lifting to bring it over the 45-minute mark. But the dazzling direction and animation that Takahashi and his staff bring to the table makes this anime worthy of a recommend. That alone is enough to understand why this anime was so damn popular among the anime bootleggers of old. Cosmo Police Justy might be simple and, in some cases, disgustingly cute, but it really is an anime that radiates some prime cosmic energy.